We're joined today on Health Matters by Dr. Gannon, a pediatrician here at the University Medical Center. Dr. Gannon, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're talking to us about a fascinating subject, and that is adoption and foster children. I think people like my wife and I and others thought about or think about adoption or being a foster parent once in a while, and we're afraid. And sometimes I imagine it's like many things we're afraid of. We don't know enough about it. Let's talk, before foster homes, let's talk a bit about adoption. For people who want to grow a family and can't, or just want to adopt a child that could need a home, what are some of the main bullet points, if you will? What are some of the main things you'd suggest they think about right up front?
Well, the most important thing to remember is that children of all ages need a forever home. And there are many children out there who do need homes. Some of them are babies. Some of them, the babies often are babies where the mother has had drug problems or other problems, and simply they know they won't be able to raise a child. They may make a choice of that, in which case domestic adoption is available through an agency. But the majority of children out there available are going to be of all ages that may be in foster care. The thing to remember about foster children or children in foster care is that they are almost always there through no fault of their own. They've been in some sort of situation that was possibly tragic, and therefore they're removed from their birth families. Those children all need forever families. Many times they're in foster care for many months, and the system will try to get them back with their birth families, and then at some point it looks like adoption's the best choice for them. Like I said, some of those may even be teenagers, but they still need a home.
What about parents, couples that think, I'd love to have a foster child in my home, maybe adopt someday, but I don't know how to deal with a child who's been through problems. I don't know how to deal with emotional issues or someone that's scarred from their past. Is help available for that? When they step forward and say, we want to open up our home, we want to love a child and support them, do you and others provide them some help and guidance on how to deal with things that are foreign to them?
Definitely. The adoption agencies, primarily it's through the Alabama Department of Human Resources that manages foster care. They also do the majority of adoptions in this state. But all the private adoption agencies also will give lots and lots of training before a child's ever placed in a new home.
Everyone knows that if, short of that, there's a chance of failure, that it doesn't work out, the parents can't take it. They need those resources, the family does, and the child does too, to make it work. Is that correct?
Right, exactly.
What would you have parents to know about just straight adoption? We want to adopt a child, don't really care much about the age, don't care much about the sex of the child. What advice would you give them to begin going down that road? Who's the best counsel to begin that process?
There are lots of great resources online. The best place to go really is the Dave Thomas Foundation. They have lots of links to other resources, some of which are state specific. Their primary objective is to link foster children with families, but there's also lots of information about other avenues of adoption, including people adopting their stepchildren. That's really the most common type of adoption in this country. So there are lots of information available. The Dave Thomas Foundation actually has a really nice program called Wendy's Wonderful Kids. Yeah. And that program specifically is targeted at the child. So they identify children that need a home, and then they work backwards and find a family that is a good fit for that particular child.
You don't just talk about adoption. You and your wife have adopted, did you tell me, 6 children?
Yes.
6 children. Well, what's been the biggest challenge for you and your wife? You're a doctor, so everybody would go, well, he's a pediatrician. It must be easy for him. It's still a huge responsibility and a lot of challenges, I'm sure. What have you learned in that process? You're a smart guy, but what have you learned at home with your wife taking care of foster children?
I think one of the most interesting things has been that regardless of what challenges we have with our adopted children, we're having a lot of the same challenges with the birth children. So people often think, okay, I go into this knowing that this child has suffered trauma or whatever, and they may be more difficult to deal with. The reality is you may have those same problems with the children that you birth. You just don't know what you're going to get until they arrive in your house and you work with them. So I think that has been a little bit surprising and something that I may not have considered.
If you had it to do over again, and I'm going to ask you to speak for you and your wife, if you had it to do over again before you ever brought a child into your home through adoption, through foster care, would you do it exactly the same way you've done it?
No doubt, yes, I definitely would.
Yeah. So would you encourage parents who are watching this, who maybe they're still relatively young, their children have grown up and they're gone, would you encourage people to explore their homes and explore their hearts and see if fostering a child or adopting a child might be something to consider? Would you encourage that?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of myth out there about that there's some maximum age for being a foster parent or an adoptive parent, and that is not true at all. The system, the agencies will certainly place children with parents 55 or older, just like they will with a younger family.
So besides the background check, which I know is done thoroughly of anyone that wants to take a child in, if you can supply clothing and food and a warm bed for a child, are you pretty much qualified, generally speaking, to take care of a child that could sure use a home?
There's a lot that goes into being the home study and everything, but really the majority of people who are interested will probably qualify as foster parents or adoptive parents.
Most people who are interested and have a heart for it are meeting some criteria with that, aren't they?
Exactly.
That they want to do it, that they want to open up their home.
That is the most important criteria.
This is a fascinating subject, and we've only chatted for a few minutes, but maybe you could join us again and we could delve into more specific details about this here on our program. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gannon.